Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast for a real statistics professor.
And the Wile E. Coyote to his Roadrunner, Jake.
I like it. Gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Saturday, February 19th, 2022, and this live episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that predicts the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games not covered in this episode, is either available right now in the Google Sheet or I'll update it after the show. Get all that set up for you. That is linked in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love. B picks are the ones I like. C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, before we get to yesterday's recap, I'll give the disclaimer here for our audience. We're rolling live. Hopefully we have no technical difficulties, but if we do, we're just going to do something and figure it out. If you listen to this later on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, and there's some weird audio things, that's what happens with live shows. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully we can get through unscathed. Yesterday, I went 3-4 on this podcast. You went 4-2, continuing your awesome week, 25-11. You went 4-2 yesterday, and you dropped your winning percentage. I mean, that's a good week right there, Jake.
You know what? That makes me mad. Like that Ohio game out of nowhere. Wow,
That was bonkers.
that drove me insane with the whole making all of 2 shots in the first half, which is just nuts. And being down 30 at halftime with 15-45 being the score, it was just nuts.
I've not seen a lot of games like that. I mean, even like IUPUI makes more than 2 shots and a half. Like, and this is, you're talking about Ohio, who's a team with tournament aspirations. I mean, just a bonkers result. We mentioned this, I believe, on Thursday when we had Chris on. We talked about how you play 30 games and you've got 5 results that you just have to say these are the really good ones, 5 results, these are the really bad ones, and you got to focus in on those 20 other games to tell you how good a team is. This wasn't one of those 5. This was like an outlier beyond that. I mean, I don't even know what to call it.
I mean, they weren't even close on their shots. They weren't barely made it above the rim. I don't know if they practiced too hard during the week or what, but I could not figure that out. It was just nuts.
It reminds me of that the Houston Rockets back a few years ago, right? When they had the whole missed 19 threes or something. And people were like, I could go out and make one of those 19, right? And that how crazy. Sometimes you just see weird results. That Ohio one definitely was, but still a good 4-2 last night for you overall. So still a great night. Before we get to today's slate, a reminder, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe or follow if you aren't yet. We appreciate both those things. They help us a lot. Also share with a friend if you know others in this game. We're going to get rolling here. I'm going to call this the early bird special. There are 2 games that are pretty big here at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, where I really like one thing and Jake really likes one thing in each of these games. They're both big games, but neither one of us love both. And so I'm going to tell you, I think you should take the over 138 in Illinois, Michigan State. I make that 141. I think you've got a possibility for overtime. I think it's early on in the day. Root for points to get your morning or your afternoon, depending on where you live, started right. So I think over in that game, if that's the big early game you want to watch. Jake, you want to talk about the other big early game, Texas Tech at Texas. Should be a raucous environment. What is your play for us on that one?
Yeah, I've been riding Texas Tech all year. I'm gonna stay the course here. I don't think Texas has enough offense. I think this is a terrible matchup for them with the way Texas Tech switches 1 through 5. They've got such athletic guys all over. I know McCullers is questionable, and so that kind of throws a kink in the Texas Tech. But I mean, I think and Texas just lost. I can't remember the guy's names. The guy left for personal reasons, so that shortens their bench. Trey Mitchell. So that shortens their bench. So I really think Texas Tech can take advantage of that. But I'm not I know Texas Tech in Lubbock, that atmosphere was insane, and I really don't know if Texas is the same way, right? Because Tech was mad, Beard left them for Texas. I don't know that Texas is that angry about it.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's one where, like I said, I'm not going to make an official pick for record keeping purpose on this because I don't know either. Historically, Texas has not been a good basketball environment. It's not been a tough place to play, really. One of the few places in the Big 12 where you say that. Most of the places in the Big 12 are very tough to play. Iowa State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, out in Lubbock. I mean, a lot of tough venues here, and Kansas, obviously, Kansas State. I mean, a lot of tough venues in the conference. Texas has not been one of them. But after what happened with the previous setup, and there was this whole thing about people from one school buying tickets for the other. So, I mean, it's gotten kind of crazy there. So I really don't know. I'll be really curious to see what the environment is like. There should be a fascinating game. You talked about Texas forgets how to basketball sometimes on the road, so that shouldn't be an issue here at home. But like you said, Tech being an issue matchup, a fascinating game. I think you were riding with Tech. I just can't wait to watch that one, just sit back and see how it goes. To our normal game breakdown segments here. 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, Alabama at Kentucky. Kentucky is a 6.5-point favorite with a total of 155. I haven't done this in a while. It hasn't worked out great. For a while there, I was kind of riding those Alabama unders. They were kind of hit or miss. My numbers kind of caught up for a while, and the totals were getting a lot closer. And so I was laying off the Alabama unders because my numbers had adjusted and kind of caught up with the books. But now I think there's been another little jump up that I don't buy. So it hasn't been overall great with this. Unders have been an okay play for Kentucky. I'm taking under 155. The model thinks 153. Again, it goes back to my numbers kind of caught up and adjusted, but now I don't see why there's been another bump up. I think Kentucky obviously wins. The question that I have for you, Jake, how much do they win by? Can they cover that 6.5?
I think they cover it. I really do. They are going to be very, very angry about what happened at Tennessee. They're going to come out and prove that completely wrong, that they're not that bad of a team. And Alabama doesn't have the defense to do what Tennessee did. They've got, Tennessee's got very quick, very athletic, and really good guards, especially defensively. And Alabama doesn't have that. They're short, and they're nowhere near as good defensively. And I think Ty Washington is really a key thing to keep your eye on here. He really makes that offense go. But I think at home there's enough balance with Mintz and Grady and Segway to cover this very easy, even without him, even if he doesn't go. But if he goes, then I think they really cover it very easy. They're, especially at home, they're an incredible defensive team. And Segway and Bidiaco, I think is how you say the big guy from Alabama's name. I think he's going to really take him apart because how physical he is, and I think that's the biggest difference in the game.
Yeah, and you were all over Tennessee, predicting them beating Kentucky, and so I like your breakdown. They're talking about it's all about the matchups, right? We try to do the best we can with the numbers to try to peg those things, but to some extent they can only go so far, and so I think it's a good analysis for you there. Obviously, Ty being a key there in how that game is going to play out. So something just to keep an eye on there. He probably won't be 100% either way, but even if he's 80% and can give him 20 minutes, that's going to be a little bit of a boost. It's not going to be a 10-point boost, right? But an extra few points here and there could be the difference in getting outside of this number. At 2 Eastern, 1 Central, Oklahoma State is playing at Iowa State. Iowa State's been a pretty strong under team this year. I don't think this number is low enough. I'm going to take under 127. The model thinks it should only be 125. This is one of those games that feels like a little bit of a sleepy one here. Jake, what do you have?
I'm on Iowa State for this one. I think they just need it more, and they're really good at home. Offense picks up a bit at home. Even though they're absolutely rough on offense, but that defense is just nasty at home. They barely allow points, and both teams are kind of in the same area offensively, with being so dependent on one guy, with Tanner Groves for Oklahoma and Isaiah Brockington for Iowa State. But I think the pressure defense and the turnovers get the best of Oklahoma, and Iowa State pulls this one out. Probably a 5-point game, but that depends on free throws towards the end. I think this one could be one of the ending shots for Oklahoma's tournament aspect hopes.
Ooh, all right, bold call there. And obviously, I said Oklahoma State. I typed state in the banner there, and so then I said Oklahoma State. Of course, it's Oklahoma at Iowa State there. both teams have had spurts, I feel like, where their offense has disappeared. I'm kind of like you. I think I trust Iowa State a little bit more at home. I think that could make a difference there. So I like the angle there. But if the offense disappears for any bit of stretch, like again, like we've seen with these teams, under should also be a safe play. So two angles there for you on that game, depending on if you're more of a side or a total better. At the same time slot, Auburn at Florida. Auburn is a 4-point favorite. I'm taking over 140. The model thinks it should be north of 142. The model's 8-3 on combined over edges on these teams, so it doesn't play over all the time. It's not like, there's some teams that the model just is all kind of always goes over and always goes under, and sometimes that kind of works for certain teams, sometimes it kind of doesn't. But these two teams, model's been a little more selective, but when it's gone over, it has worked pretty well. So I like this one over 140. Auburn, a slight favorite here, so we think Auburn wins. Going to Florida, I think it feels to me. I'm going to kind of segue into this. We haven't talked. I don't know exactly where you're going with this, Jake, but I'm going to kind of segue you where I think you're going with this one. Florida at home feels a lot like we talked about Texas at home in the Big 12, a place that isn't really that scary to play at, and so that makes me. My general thought is, it's hard to win on the road, these low scoring these tight spreads, right? But I'm not sure I'd feel that way here with Auburn. What do you got for us?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. I mean, Auburn has struggled on the road here recently, almost dropping to Missouri and Georgia, which are the bottom of the SEC. But I think those teams have a little better guards than Florida has. Florida is really struggling guard play. I know they got Castleton back, but Walker Kessler is an even match, if not better than him. And then you've got Jabari Smith, who's also 6'10", and I don't see Florida having anywhere close to a matchup for him. So if he has just an average game, I think Auburn flies through this with the way their guards play and the way Kessler defends the rim. It's just nuts. I think he had, 12 or 13 blocks in their last game. That was incredible. But I really think that's the difference. Is Kessler's defense and Jabari Smith should have been able to handle this game. And then, of course, you've got Green and Johnson, who are just really good players for Auburn. I just don't think Florida's got the horses to keep this one close.
All right, so another two different angles on that game. Again, if you want the side of the total there, I'm taking over 140. Jake is laying the 4 with Auburn. 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, Tennessee at Arkansas. Arkansas is out to a 3-point favorite. This spread was closer to about 1 or so yesterday afternoon, yesterday night. That made a lot more sense to me being there. I don't know why this line is moving the way it is, moving out to Arkansas. I don't know if it's a false move and it's one of those things where occasionally we see sometimes large money bettors will bet what seems like a large money to most of us probably on one side to get the line to move, and they'll come back with even more on the other side to soften up and get that number one. We see that sometimes. I don't know if that's what's happening here. It's kind of first part place my brain goes, because Arkansas -3 is a very perplexing line to me personally. That implies that Arkansas and Tennessee are about the same, and as good as Arkansas has been playing, and I was on Arkansas here recently. I had them to beat Auburn. I had them after that as well, and so I like the way Arkansas has been playing. My numbers have been seeing that, but Tennessee's also been playing fantastic, and to say that these two teams are even is just a bit of a stretch to me. The model makes this Tennessee -1. I think Tennessee is a good 3 to 4 points easily better than Arkansas. Obviously, there might be some differential home court effects to talk about, with the travel and whatnot. But even then, even if my numbers are off by a point or so, make this a pick 'em? Sure. I don't understand why we're getting 3 points here. It's an A pick for me on Tennessee +3. If you're the type who likes money line and plus odds, I think that's a solid play as well. It could be a tight game, so that's just your personal preference, right? I don't want to say I think you should do this, I think you should do that, because I think you should make the decisions with your money and your risk tolerance. If you like having those 3 points in your back pocket, I think that's solid. If you like the plus odds and the money line, that's kind of the way you roll. I think that's solid too. I think Tennessee's a great play. It's an A pick for me. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm taking Tennessee, and I'm also taking a money line. I really think this Tennessee team has figured out something offensively. The shots are finally going, and I like this Arkansas team. I really do, the way they're playing lately, but I don't think they've got the defense to hold Tennessee down right now. And I think that's one thing Tennessee's had all year, is that defense travels, and they play just such an incredible up-in-your-face defense and just nag you all the time and just force so many bad plays and turnovers. And J.D. Note is probably the best player in the SEC going right now, and I think this is a bad matchup for him. Like, not only do we have Tennessee has the quick guards like Zakai Ziegler and Kennedy Chandler who are just all over you and won't let you breathe. But then even if he starts going, you can put a Josiah Jordan James on him, who's got the height and quickness and strength to kind of make his life miserable. And I just don't see enough help for him to one win the game, but really get it over the three that they need now. Like one, you can make that argument for a shot here or there goes the other way, but three is a little bit different because now you're looking at two possessions, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me there. So Jake and I both all over Tennessee there in the middle afternoon slot, and then we're going to jump right to the late games. There are some interesting evening games, but let's kind of after dark segment this, right? A little shout out to our one of our fun college football segments back that we did in the fall. 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We're staying up late. BYU at St. Mary's, big game in the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's with that huge win over San Francisco, all but assured now a tournament bid. BYU squarely on the bubble, really needs to get things going in the right direction. This is a game that St. Mary's is favored by 6, and if it goes just like the experts think and BYU loses this game, if BYU then becomes the 4 seed, if they lose early in the conference tournament, it's even worse. But if nothing else, they get matched up against Gonzaga and get blown out there, BYU's going to have a hard time making the tournament. So again, BYU really needs to get a good, impressive win on their resume. They have some really bad losses. They need something to offset that. I don't think they get it done. I've got St. Mary's as a B pick -6. The model thinks 7.5. I also like the under in this game, 135. I think that's too many points, but I'm a little scarred still after Thursday night, that St. Mary's San Francisco game that had 20. I'm still a little better. 20 points in the last 85 seconds. So I'm just a little scarred of if this game does land around 6 or 7. That's the exact same type of thing we're going to see with St. Mary's, being fouled, hitting free throws, and then if they give up points, the total could kind of go a little crazy. So I like the under, but I'm just a little gun shy after that one. And so I think that St. Mary's is a slightly smarter play to lay the 6 because I think they win by at least 7.5. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, you make pretty much all the points I was going to make, and besides the fact that BYU is bad.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Yeah,
they are rough. St. Mary's is a fairly decent shooting team, hitting around 35% of their threes, and you've got about 77% from the free throw line. So that should easily cover the 6 because, like you've pointed out in the past, the 7's the key number. So if it's anywhere below that, I think St. Mary's has the free throws to push it right above it. And like BYU has to have this game. If they lose this one, there's maybe one more chance they have for a quad 1 win, and I don't think they have one this year. So I don't. Even if they go into the tournament with like the 4 seed after losing this game, I think they would have to get to
be Gonzaga,
and that's going through Gonzaga, and that's not going to happen. I think Gonzaga beat about 40 from last time, so it's just they've got to have this game.
Yep.
Don't think they do it. I think St. Mary's covers it easy.
Yep. I agree. I like that a lot. And then also same time slot, a little Pac-12 after dark, Oregon at Arizona. Arizona, a solid double-digit favorite, so we all think that Arizona is going to win this. Oregon's a team that we've mentioned before, really hard to figure out. They were bad, and then they were good, and then they had a blip in the road that actually was okay because then they still were good, and then now I guess they're bad again. I don't understand this team at all. They're so highly variable. So I'm staying away from the spread personally, and I'm going to take under 149.5. I see this game having a hard time getting to 150. The model makes it 148. I still think that's a little too high personally. Arizona, underrated defense. Obviously, we know about how good Arizona's offense is, and that's why this number is so high because everyone knows that. But people still just aren't talking about how good this Arizona defense is. So I think this is too many points. I think Arizona gets an easy win. And if Oregon has really completely fallen apart, Arizona wins this game. If they win by 20, we get a sleepy last 5 minutes, one of those situations where there's 7 points in the last 5 minutes or something to really cruise to an easy under victory, in my opinion. Jake, can Arizona win by 13 or more? It's a big number for a conference game.
Yeah, I think this one gets close to that 20 number like you were talking about. I think this Oregon team, I don't think Dana Altman knows what to do. I don't think he knows how to get them out of it. I think he's just kind of lost with this team. It's just the pieces aren't working well. And there really is no answer for Mathurin or the size of Arizona Oregon has. I mean, I think Arizona averages 7 blocks a game or close to it, which is really, really good. And I think this one gets up to around that 20 number, and they kind of fall asleep, but I think they still stay above. I think it's a 15, 20-point game, and possibly lean even more than that because and deal a giant dash to the tournament hopes of Oregon if it gets up above 20. But this is going to be a rough game. I don't recommend staying up and watching it, but
Watch the first half. Hopefully it's 20.
Yeah,
Yeah, hopefully it's
the best second half team in the nation by several different metrics and places. They'll it might be tight in the first half, and then I think they just come out in the second half, which is a credit to their coach, coming out making adjustments and then just blowing people out of the water in the second half.
And it's a good point, right? It's a late game. If Arizona, if you know Arizona's up by 10 at the half, you can probably go to bed and rest easy on that one, or flip over to that St. Mary's game if that one's still close. Whatever else you got going on, because if Arizona's up by double digits at the half, that game is long over. And that does it for our game breakdowns. We're going to go into the overtime A plays. A ton of games in the slate. Not as many A plays. I was actually commenting about this recently on Twitter. It's interesting. Early on in the season, the edges were just bigger, but as the season goes on, the edges get tighter. On a Saturday, you go back to the second Saturday of the season, I would have had 30 or 40 A plays easily. So I don't know how we would have handled this segment. I'm not going to read off 40 picks, right? It would just been like, I don't know. There's a bunch of them. Go to the sheet. With 10 of them, I think we can talk about them. I can give a little tidbit on each one of them. The first one that I have, the first A pick, 11 a.m. Syracuse minus 8.5 versus Boston College. This line confuses me. This line should be double digits. I think Syracuse wins this easily, 11, 12, something like that. I don't really see how Boston College can hang in this game. Jake?
That seems like they're valuing that Kyler Edwards injury a little too much and giving a little Boston College a little too much credit for that. I think with the zone and the way Syracuse shoots, they cover that fairly easy.
Yep. 1 p.m. Oral Roberts laying another big number, minus 11 at North Dakota. Models 4-2 on A fades of North Dakota. I just think Oral Roberts is in a whole different class as North Dakota. Even though it's on the road, I think they win that one running away.
Yeah. Oral Roberts is going to bounce back from that bad loss they took. They're going to come back, take over this game, and really stamp their name all over it.
Yep. Also at that same time slot, 1 p.m. Central, Kansas State plus 5.5 at Oklahoma State. I think Kansas State's pretty good. They had a little bit of injury and COVID issues kind of right around that same time. They had a game that didn't get postponed, but there was questions of if it would have, or a couple games were questions if they were going to get postponed. They were down to like 6 guys. The coach was out. I mean, it was just kind of chaos in that whole program for a good 2 weeks. You take that out, Kansas State's respectable. Oklahoma State has been mostly down on an up and down season. I think Kansas State's trending the right direction. You give me 5.5 points again, or if you like that money line, I think Kansas State's the side you want here at Oklahoma State.
Yeah. I love this Kansas State pick. It's my favorite of your A plays today. And I really like at this point in the season, you got to start questioning what Oklahoma State's playing for. They can't go any farther than this. So maybe guys start checking out, especially if games start getting bad.
Yep, definitely on the table there. Also, 1 p.m. Central, I've got Howard minus 6.5 versus Morgan State. I have not seen 1 second of Howard. I've not seen 1 second of Morgan State. I'm trusting the process. I don't know. The math says to do it, so I'm laying 6.5.
I think if I remember reading the numbers correctly, Howard is one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the nation. So I think that's where they cover through this, but I could be wrong. I'm really just trusting the numbers here.
Yeah. Some of these small schools, it's like, I'm just trusting the math. That's why I built the model, right? The whole first place. One that I don't have to just trust the math on, 2:30 p.m. Central, LSU at South Carolina. LSU's been better by numbers this year. And so anytime LSU pops up, I like that play. I didn't write the number on my sheet. I think I laid 4 with LSU. As an A pick. I think they go on the road and get a nice, easy victory. As long as they get that numbers under 6 or so, I like that because we always talk about fouls should easily get us there if it's close. I think LSU's got a decent chance to just be up by 10 with 2 minutes to go and not worry about it.
Yeah, LSU's defense is up there with the top few in the nation. And then adding Xavier Pinson back into that offense really stabilizes the offense a little bit and makes them not as bad. They're a rough offense, but not as bad when he plays. So I think that's the difference in this game.
All right, 3 p.m. Central, Gardner-Webb -1 at Presbyterian. I'm going to call this the Trust the Process special. My model is 2 and 5 on A or B picks of Gardner-Webb. It hasn't done well fading Presbyterian. I've made this comment before. I think it's always interesting. People want a little insight in the model. I've tried every which way possible. I can identify when I have biases on certain teams. I can identify when I'm missing on certain teams. I've tried to systematically figure out a way to correct for that. I can't make the model better. I can't do it. Everything I've tried just makes the overall process worse. And so I just trust in the process and saying Gardner Webb -1's the play. They can go on the road and get the win. It's not a plug your nose and play special, but it's a plug your nose and play with respect to I don't love the results these teams have had with respect to the model.
Yeah, I'm just trusting you on this one. I'm riding with Gardner Webb.
All right, and then a similar idea, 4 p.m. Central, Texas Southern -11 at Mississippi Valley State. These two teams have not been kind to us lately. I've really liked Texas Southern, and they have let us down a couple of times. Mississippi Valley State, I love fading, and they've let us down. Both these teams made us a lot of money earlier, and we've kind of slowly been giving it back to the books here on these two teams. So I knew when I saw them playing, I knew the model was going to say all over Texas Southern. I'm just trusting that they're a much better team. They're a veteran team. They can go on the road and win by double digits against Mississippi Valley State. But the way these two teams have played lately, this is the trust the process special 2.0.
Yeah. I don't know. We've been so wrong on Mississippi Valley State here recently.
Yeah.
But I'm riding with you on Texas Southern. Hopefully they can pull this one out for us.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think you have to ask. And I always tell people, like, I'm trying to give you all the best advice possible, but always play what you like, play what you think, right? Just because I say play something doesn't mean just blindly play it, right? It's your money. I want you to have confidence in it. What I will say is, I think the question you have to ask yourself about that, ABIC, is do you think that Mississippi Valley State has found something out? Do you think they're actually not horrible now, or do you think this is just an aberration? So the math thinks the numbers think it's just an aberration. They still aren't very good at all, and Texas Southern's much better, and so that's what I'm going to trust. But hey, if you look at it and you think they figured something out in the way they're playing that they can keep it up, then I wouldn't roll with this one. So just kind of a question you have to ask yourself on that game specifically. 4:30 Central, Stony Brook -4 versus Hartford. This is another one I've not seen a second of either one of these teams. I think Stony Brook is better than Hartford, so laying 4 at home I think has some value.
Yeah, Stony Brook is the better team at every level here. It's just like the conference, it's different from the Oklahoma State thing. The conference has banned them from the NCAA tournament. So is that I quit because I can't play anymore? Or is that, all right, just because you banned us, we're going to hit you even harder and lower everybody's seeds? So it's a weird motivation thing, but I think Stony Brook is the better team.
Mm-hmm. And they've tended to play well since that news came out. They've tended to kind of take it as a personal insult almost, and so that's at least something that's trustworthy as opposed to they haven't seemed to throw in the towel yet. So until they do that, right, until we see them decide the season's over, I think they're still a safe team to back. 5 p.m. Rhode Island -3 at George Washington. Rhode Island and George Washington, two teams that kind of slide under the radar in that conference. There's a lot of interesting teams in that conference. I don't think either one of these two teams are, but I think Rhode Island's a better team. Laying a short number, I think, has some value.
Yeah, both these teams I've made some money on because they've been a little surprising. They're not as bad as what the numbers say, so I really don't know from my standpoint, I really don't know who to pick when they play each other. So I'm going to trust you and ride Rhode Island here.
All right. And then 5 p.m. Central, also Texas A&M Corpus Christi. My hometown, -6.5 versus Northwestern State. Northwestern State plays fast, plays no defense. I think Texas A&M Corpus Christi is just a bad matchup for them. I think Texas A&M Corpus Christi can win this by double digits. If it's close, the fouls get us there. I don't think it will be close late because these high-scoring games tend to have a propensity to lead to more extreme scores because there's more scoring, right? The low-scoring games are the ones that tend to stay tighter. I don't think this stays tight. And if it does, I think fouls can get us there at the end. So I love laying 6.5 with the Islanders.
Yeah, I know nothing of these two teams. It took me forever to figure out that Northwestern State is in Louisiana for some reason.
Yeah.
So go with the model.
All right. And then I've got the A+ play of the day, 3 p.m. Norfolk State. -1.5 on Coppin State. This one seems like the layup. The model is 5-1 on A plays of Norfolk State. I've loved backing Norfolk State. They've been great to us. I don't see any reason to stop that. I always talk about when do you get off a team, right? And a lot of times I'm trusting the numbers and seeing has the number caught up to them yet, yes or no. I don't think the number's caught up. I think Norfolk State is really good. I think Coppin State isn't, at least relative to that conference, of course. So I'm laying a short number with Norfolk State. I think they get that done easily, even though it is on the road. That's my A+ play of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Norfolk State is the much better team than Coppin State, and I'm not sure why this number is so short, so I'm going with them.
All right, and that is the A play segment. Moving on to the live audience questions. Got a lot of chat here. Love to see that. We already talked about a couple of these games, which is kind of fun. Um, Jake Fagan noted that Norfolk State, right? You already got that -1.5. So I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna really love what I said. That's the A+ play of the day. Already covered Oral Roberts. Specific question, Jake. Maybe you can answer this one about the Syracuse zone. Could the Syracuse zone keep this game from going over the total? I like Syracuse. We both talked about we like Syracuse to win. Do you have any insight there on their defense and how they are going to how the total might play? Total is 146.
Yeah, well, from just a pure basketball strategy standpoint, a zone sometimes can hide some weaknesses defensively,
Right,
right?
right.
It makes you hurt rebounding if you don't know what you're doing with that. And I think Syracuse practices that enough to know what they're doing. But I really think it throws such a hard because for a long time the traditional knowledge was you got to shoot them out of the zone and not penetrate it, and a lot of guys still fall into that. And I think it makes teams, especially with lesser players like Boston College, fall asleep and try to shoot Syracuse out of that zone. And that doesn't work out well because they just push you farther and farther out. And the farther you get from the goal, the less likely you are to hit the shot.
It is. It's true. It's a scientifically proven fact. The further away you are from the basket, the harder it is to score.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. I just think that Boston College isn't good enough to conquer the zone, and I think even with the loss of Edwards, they're good enough to cover. And the over under scares me because the way Syracuse can just light the goal up every once in a while when the Boeheim family gets hot.
Yeah, you're right. Syracuse is a very volatile team. They go on spurts where they just like should light it up, and so I've noticed that, and it's kind of affected their actual game results too. When they show up, sometimes they just dominate, and other times so they are a little variable. We talked about team totals before. I don't generally love team totals. You're increasing your variability because only half the game matters. So I don't love team totals, and you have to lay a little extra juice. So I don't love them, but it is something to look at. Everyone does their own thing. So if you like the team total, their Boston College under might be solid. I make the game 143.5. So at 146, I like that under. I think 143.5 is a little bit high that implies a score of 77.5 to 66. I kind of think Boston College is gonna have a hard time getting to 66. That's kind of my personal opinion on that one. Let's see, Niagara -1. Jake, do you have anything on Niagara -1 while I find that one?
Man, my numbers told me to take Niagara, but I got them at +1. So, I mean, there's not much of a difference between +1 and -1.
Right.
You're really just picking a winner. So I'm on Niagara, but the line moving like that makes me think something's going on, and I would think Niagara would make me a little more confident.
There are way too many games in this day for me to even find where that is in my sheet.
Line 15 on the Google sheet, at least.
Ah, yes. So yeah, I make that Niagara -1.1. So Niagara, I think what I was trying to pull is my actual internal document. I think that my numbers have overestimated Niagara, so I don't love Niagara. If that's the case, yeah, I've underestimated Niagara by 1 point per game. I've been spot on with Canisius, so my official play there is under 136.5. Both teams have been under my numbers, so if that holds true, I think under's a safer play, but it should be a toss-up game. I don't love Niagara. Thoughts on UConn first half versus Xavier? I don't do any first half stuff. Jake, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, first half stuff always scares me because weird things happen. It's especially with college basketball. Like last night, Ohio comes out and makes 2 shots so it scares me. And we're actually split on this. So I'm riding UConn.
You're on, okay. I'm on Xavier.
Yeah, so I'm sorry we can't really give you great advice there. I like UConn because they've got the better guards and they're getting healthy, and so Bongo Sagongo is a really good big guy that should give Fremantle and Nunji fits.
I'm on Xavier because I'm a math nerd who built a model, and the model says to play Xavier. If we're just all cards on the table, Xavier and Connecticut have been teams that are a lot of fun to watch this year, but they're hard to figure out. Yeah, they're just kind of all over the map. So, especially the full game number being right at 6.5. If UConn's up late, we also talk about fouls. That's a tough one to figure out there. Wofford and Furman. You got anything for us on Wofford and Furman?
I don't know, but Mr. Walker there has a lot of faith in me. I don't think I could body slam a bear if I wanted to. But Wofford and Furman, I really like this Furman team. They're really good, and they've got to stay motivated here because they're like losing to Chattanooga last week, I think, or maybe earlier this week, really hurt their chances of the tournament because it's going to drop them to the second seed. So they've really got to stay motivated since Chattanooga, I think, dropped the last game.
Mm-hmm.
So they've really opened up the door for them. So they've really got to take this, and I think their coach and everybody's going to emphasize that, and I think they're going to put it to Wofford.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mr. Walker's other comment about me talking fast. My students tell me that all the time. That they're like, "You get excited, slow down." If anybody watches or listens to this on audio, I don't know about y'all. I'm personally a guy who I like to listen to my podcast at 1.2 speed, 1.4, 1.5 maybe. I feel like trying to listen to me on 1.5 speed would just be a disaster. You wouldn't know what I'm saying. But Wofford Furman, I'm with you. I like Furman. I make that game about 7, and so I laid 5.5 as a B pick last night. I think Furman's the right side, and I think that number's good to us. Again, we always talk about I convert all these to probabilities, and when I convert them, right, I do take note of what the number is. I've got historical data to try to figure out where there's actually value. It shows up a little bit less so than I'd like it to in college basketball, but I like this type of number laying a 5 rather than we always talk about, laying a 7.5 is a little bit more worrisome because you just never know when a team's going to stop fouling, how that situation is going to play out. So I like Furman. And then we'll open up if there are any other last questions to talk about. Jake, you said the other one. You said that you liked Kansas State. I was going to mention we are going to roll that into your official buzzer beater record for today, since that's the one that you like the most. And then I'll get that A+ play of the day in the sheet. Take note at the beginning of the episode. I mentioned what our records are. I have in the Google sheet what our records are for each specific segment. If you want to go see that, I put a lot of fun stuff there. Otherwise, I think that's it. We will head out for the morning. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Best of luck today, everyone. Remember, check out that Google Sheet for all picks and totals on today's games not covered in this episode. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. We will get you a new episode every weekday of the college basketball season. We will see you Monday. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.